up, y'all? What up? What up? And yet still, this is the I Really Mean It Show podcast with your host, RGB. And you hear all the noise here in the background. I'm actually live and direct from Shelby Farms Park at the Minfo Fest. That's here, first annual Minfo Fest, sponsored by International Paper, Orion Federal Credit Union, First Tennessee, and whatnot. So happy to be with you. I'm so sorry I missed you all yesterday. Yesterday being Fridays, normally when I record and put out the podcast, but I just had a crazy day yesterday with some great business that came my way. Definitely shout out to Level 5 out of Atlanta, Georgia, and also in Birmingham, Alabama. Had a great conversation in terms of demographic development and some trends that will be coming in Memphis and kind of around the country. So that was a great conversation. But I'm here at Minfo Fest. There's probably about 200 people here or so. If you get a chance, come out. Very diverse crowd, lots of food trucks. It is a family atmosphere, even though they're selling beer. I'm not sure what it's going to look like tonight, but right now there's a band on the stage playing. They've gone through a series or a myriad of songs, whether it's from Stax R&B to some soft rock and that kind of thing. So it's been good. Plenty of security coverage here, so you can feel relatively safe. One thing I would tell the folks here at Minfo is the parking's got to be a little bit better. I had a VIP ticket, right? And of course I had to park damn near across the park to get here to the area where the festival is going on. So whether you're VIP or not doesn't really matter. I mean, hell. But, the parking probably needs to be a little clearer and that kind of thing. But other than that, great food trucks are here. Corky's is out here, Mim Pops, Taste of Food, and several others. I got to get around and make my rounds. But anyway, so glad you could join me. I want to jump right into what we're going to get into today. Here, coming live from Shelby Farms Park. I want to talk some about the situation, the terrorist situation in Las Vegas that happened earlier this week. I want to give you my take on that and how, from a Memphis point of view or perspective, with our different events, and I'm actually here at one at Minfo Fest, but with our different events, how we can help mitigate and eliminate the threat of something like that. So you'll definitely want to hear that. I'm going to talk a little bit about politics, which I don't get into too much on this particular podcast. However, I do want to talk some about the various parties, whether Democrat or Republican, and how they're starting to gear up for 2018. 2018 is going to be a big political year as you have the midterm elections that'll be going on. So I want to get into a little bit about that and a local candidate that's getting a little bit of buzz and going for the Shelby County Mayor position. So put a pin right there. We're going to get into it. I want to talk some more. So a few weeks ago when I was in D.C., the news came out about Amazon and their second HQ and how Memphis, among 50 cities or so, could be in the running for that. Memphis has put their bid in, and so I want to talk some more about my thoughts on where something like that could be located. Also keeping in mind that Amazon has recently inked a deal for kind of the southern part of Memphis near Tullahoma, where there'll be, I imagine, a distribution center or whatnot that's going to be placed there. And I think that's very positive in the search for the HQ, and I'm going to tell you why here in a second. But I'm proud of the city for putting the bid in, despite its opportunities, despite its challenges, as every city that puts a bid in is going to have some level of challenge. It is great to see us put our name in the hat, so I'm going to talk some about that. And then last, I'm going to share with you a positive word. I want to start doing this after every podcast at the end. This is a podcast about positivity, and I want to make sure that it stays that way. And I want to share with you a word that you can take with you throughout the week. So strap your seatbelts on, baby, and let's go do it. I Really Mean It Show podcast with RGB. Hey, listen, make sure that you're doing business with local companies. There are several people. You can check my Facebook page or Instagram. There are several businesses that do great business here in this area and kind of around the country. So you should definitely look to do business with these folks. I've had Chris Eggleston on from Global Innovation Now. make sure that you check him out, globalinnovationnow.com. Chris is out in California, still doing this thing. What up, Chris? Los Angeles, California, by way of Memphis, Tennessee. Greg Bernard, who's going to be on the show here in a few weeks with Data Maxim. Outsource your IT. If you've got a company and you're at the point where you have to manage information technology, make sure you get with Greg Bernard at Data Maxim. Check out Jason Daniels with Titan Electrical for your electrical needs for your residential or commercial property. Definitely do that. From a podcast standpoint, make sure you're listening to The Startup Life. That's one of my favorite podcasts out, one of the best ones out. That's hosted by my brother, Dominic Lawson. Him and his wife, Kenda, with Owls LLC, do a phenomenal job here in this city. Make sure that you check out that podcast on all the different channels, Google and SoundCloud and whatnot. Cynthia Daniels and Company, thank you so much. I'm going to be on a panel next Saturday at the Level Up Conference. I'll be speaking about career and family and that kind of thing with some other distinguished guests. That's actually next Friday the 13th and the 14th, that's Saturday, at the Hilton. Check out Cynthia Daniels and Company. Make sure you get your tickets to that and come check many speakers. I think she's got something like 40 or 50 speakers at this thing. Very distinguished people that are going to bring an interesting perspective. Not your usual people that you always hear from, and I want to stress that. A lot of times we have these conferences and things like that, and you hear from the same old people, which is nothing wrong with that in a sense, but it's good to get a different perspective, a diversified perspective. You know what I mean? From different people from around the city and around the country. So I'm going to have a dynamic keynote speaker there, but Cynthia brings great events, and there's just a number of events all over. We had one on the river just recently. So Memphis has really stepped its game up with that. But make sure that you're supporting these businesses, and I'll make sure to announce them as much as I can. Okay? All right, so let's jump right into it. And I want to start with Las Vegas. So I think everybody's well aware of, obviously, what took place in Las Vegas earlier this week with the gentleman. I'm not going to say his name because he's popular enough. But the gentleman that decided from the 32nd floor of Mandalay Bay Hotel Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, who decided to open fire on a crowd of people who were attending a country music event very close nearby. He killed north of 50 people, I think closer to 60 people, injured hundreds other, and there'll be more news, I'm sure, of the unfortunate status of some people. But nonetheless, it's very sad when something like that takes place, and I want to talk about it from a Memphis standpoint. The FBI was able to react very quickly, which is an excellent thing. But so from a Memphis standpoint, I'm here at the Mempho Fest, and so I can speak to this as I'm sitting here at the event, and there are wonderful people that have come by the event and who will come by later today. But security is paramount, and this gentleman in particular with the Las Vegas situation did not fit the profile of your typical terrorist. And we want to make sure we refer it to the right way. So whether the current president or the past president was not big into calling these things terrorist acts, I'm here to tell you that was a terrorist act. That was a terrorist act that took place domestically on our soil, and everybody should realize that terrorist acts are not limited to people of color. They're not limited to people of a certain religion or a certain creed. A terrorist attack takes place when an individual decides that they're going to terrorize in some kind of harmful capacity the well-being of another human being or another animal or another living thing. That is a terrorist. So whatever you want to call it, or if anybody wants to avoid that, it is what it is. No matter how they look or where they come from or whether they're domestic or from overseas, that's terrorism, and you should call it that. And by calling it that, once you identify and name something correctly, that's just like looking at an animal and saying, well, it's got feathers and it's got a beak, and it's walking around, it's laying eggs, but I don't want to call it a duck. Well, hell, it's a duck, so call it a duck, right? That way, you can move forward into how you're going to react and how you're going to approach it once you properly identify something. And so it's key that we identify that. But from a Memphis standpoint, folks, man, again, my heart goes out to the families of those that were impacted, to those that suffered loss of life, and those who have been injured and scarred by this particular terrorist act. But from a Memphis standpoint, we should look at these things and learn from them, not just watch it solely for the tragedy and watch it for the hype that the media will give it, but we should look at it for where's the opportunity for us to learn from that and be prepared with our various events and things like that. Again, granted that this individual did not fit the normal description of someone that you would think would take or the action of terrorism. This was a guy that, by alleged reports, was a multimillionaire, was a heavy gambler, even according to his brother, who was on the Today Show. And he lived nearby in Nevada, just outside of the Las Vegas area. And he's able to get in 19 firearms or so, and then he had a slew of them at his house that he was able to buy over time. And they're wearing out and interviewing his girlfriend now, who no one really knows what involvement she had or didn't have or whatnot. But I heard it, or not so much I heard it, but I read it in my timeline on Facebook and Instagram that people were wondering how the hell he was able to get guns in the Mandalay Bay to the 32nd floor. Anybody that's traveled knows that at the hotel, they don't check your bags. Listen, your bags are checked. Of course, you go through TSA when you're going through the airports and whatnot, in and out, before you board planes and get to your boarding station and all that kind of thing. But in a hotel, what hotel have y'all been to where the hotel people ask you to open your bag and check what's in your suitcases and duffel bags and all that kind of thing? Oh, wait. So, exactly. So, that doesn't really happen, right? So, yes, he was able to get guns and things like that up to his room. But you know that what that's going to do is going to make, or possibly have come down the line, where you're going to have to go through a metal detector to get into the hotel. That's going to be a pain in the ass, but it's liable to happen. To go, not so much to go out, but to come into the hotel. So even if you go out the door and come back in, hell, you might have to go through a metal detector. So it is what it is. We tend to, in this country, overreact oftentimes, but in some cases, that protection, that security is big for us here. So from a Memphis standpoint, we should look at our events and look at how we have security aligned, where people are able to enter and exit. And these are all things that I'm sure law enforcement and security are trained on. And you can't account for a guy that several yards away, 100 yards away, is going to decide to open fire with modified weapons. I know you can't account for that. And you can't always account for some dumbass doing that. What you can do is take that and learn from it. And when you have events that go on around buildings, there should be some kind of check or some kind of bird's eye watch. And this may happen, I'm not an expert in this field, so this may already be happening, but we should really look at that from a Memphis community. So whether events are going on downtown at Peabody or at Tom Lee Park, or if they're going on at Bass Pro or out here at Shelby Farms, wherever it is in the city, we should look at how we're having a bird's eye view of buildings and open windows and things like that. People looking at windows, or who's looking at that. And so definitely a tough tragedy, but I'd like to see us here in Memphis and the surrounding area, and really just around the country, learn from this particular instance and make sure that we're better and that people can feel safe. And I've heard people say, they don't want to go to public events anymore. And, I think when you do that, that's when terrorism wins. When terrorism is designed to get you to act differently than the way you've been acting, to make you pessimistic, to make you fearful, so that you'll no longer collaborate or no longer connect with other people because you're fearful and scared of what may transpire. And I think we should always put pressure on ourselves as well as on law enforcement and security to make sure that those things are covered, that it's not so visible that we look like this damn police state, which has happened a lot in America, by the way. We got police walking around looking like some of this stuff on TV and the movies where, hell, they're going to be armored up like Batman pretty soon. But let's put pressure and hold all of us accountable to watching out for what's going on. But let's not be pessimistic and allow terrorism to cause us to be fearful and scared. We should not be fearful and scared in this country, but we should also be mindful and not be naive to the fact that things can occur, and we should be attentive. That you should always kind of have your head on a swivel and be attentive to your surroundings and to what's going on. And then our law enforcement and security should do the same thing. But definitely shout out to those here in Memphis that work in this area on a day-to-day basis to be mindful and to try to keep people safe and try to thwart things like this. And keep that in mind, too, that a lot of these things do get thwarted. They do get stopped. So, for every one of these that makes the news and becomes a sensationalized story, there, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of terrorist attacks or attempts probably throughout the country and throughout the world that get stopped and thwarted, even if that means injury to someone or even a loss of life to someone who stopped some of these things. So definitely, man, big shout out to those kind of people, man. It's a big deal when you have that. So let's look to be mindful, call this a terrorist act, and then let's move forward. One thing I did want to touch on before I get to the next subject too is some of the updates from Equifax. So I talked about this a couple weeks ago too when it broke. The whole Equifax fiasco has just been a whole just big mess, to say the least. I've got a recommendation for Equifax that'll help them out. Hey, look, I'm not even PR, I'm not marketing or any of that kind of thing, y'all, but I'm going to help Equifax out today very quickly. So Equifax, if you're listening to this podcast, and I'm sure you are, if not, y'all share this with Equifax. Here's how you can help save face. So you stepped on a lot of shit over the last month. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Equifax fiasco of allegedly, or at least it's been identified that 143 million records of individual adults in this country, and probably young people too, was leaked, and it's been released in terms of what information that they were able to gather and things like that. So this is going to be a mess for some time. And you're talking to someone who's in the financial institution field, so I've seen the blunt of that from a retail perspective and from a commercial perspective. But here's how I can help Equifax. So Equifax, here's what you do. You take everybody's credit score in your database and you boost it up 75 points. Yeah, you boosted up 75 points, right? Now, guess how many friends you're going to make after that? If somebody goes from a 600 credit score to 675. Okay? Now, you still got to come out and address the issue, right? So you can't come out with this BS, kind of fairy tale kind of thing, but come out and address it heads on. The CEO was before Congress this week, and you could debate, his approach and how forthcoming he was or wasn't and that kind of thing. But I can help you out, brother. Boost everybody's score 75 basis points. Make a big brouhaha out of it with a commercial campaign, radio, print, all that kind of thing. Don't send out all these emails because don't nobody trust y'all with email no more, and y'all's links and all that kind of thing. Get on TV. We're boosting everybody's credit score up 75 points for the next 6 months. Now, people who got bad behavior and things like that in terms of how they handle their credit and things like that, that ain't gonna go away. They'll go right, if they continue that behavior, it's gonna go right back down, right? So there's no reason to suggest that by doing this it's going to affect anything. Financial institutions, on the other hand, will get a boost because now you got people with better credit who are going to be out in the market looking to borrow money, and they'll be spending money and things like that. You may have some measurable increase in home ownership because now people qualify for a mortgage where maybe they didn't. So as a financial institution, the onus would be on you in that scenario to make sure that you're properly mitigating your risk and things like that, however you choose to do that. And you can make sure that you can look at people's credit before and after the boost. But if Equifax really wants to clean this up, they'll go in and they'll boost everybody's credit score 75 points. Now, if you happen to be at 800 or 820 and all that already, congratulations to you. And, let's take you up to the max, 850, 900, whatever that is. But I'm telling you, boost everybody's score 75 points and see what they do. They'll be in love with you again, Equifax, I'm telling you. This ain't going to just go away, so you ain't going to be able to just sit on your hands or tuck your tail between your legs. You're going to have to address this head on. You're going to have to get the confidence of people back again. I'll tell you, I got calls just from my business from TransUnion, and they're looking to take advantage. I haven't really heard from Experian, but I have heard from TransUnion. So don't think people aren't going to look to take advantage of your mishap. So just a quick word to Equifax, right? Okay, so we talked about Las Vegas. I do want to get into a little bit with you all in terms of some of the Memphis political scene and the political scene in general. This isn't a political podcast, so I won't get into a whole lot of this. I may talk about it some during the election cycle as it starts to heat up. I may even bring on a candidate or two to come in and speak from a certain perspective. But anyway, you're starting to see remnants of 2018 start to hit now. Both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are gearing up their candidates, and you're going to see an election cycle that's going to be wild. If you think the office of the president has been wild so far this year, and you damn near sure would be right in saying that it has, you're going to really see a crazy midterm election cycle for several reasons. One, the climate now, as you look at the current president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, if you look at some of the movement from former President Barack Obama, the 44th president of the United States, and how people have gotten nostalgic. People have even, it's so crazy now that people are getting nostalgic for the 43rd president, which was George W. Bush. People have even gotten nostalgic for him. But you're going to see a political climate like no other next year. It's going to be a very noisy year. And locally, you've had Lee Harris, who's currently in the Tennessee Senate, who has put his name in the hat for Shelby County Mayor. I haven't had a chance to do a bunch of research into who all's put their name in and yada, 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 yada. But Lee Harris has put his name in the hat, and it's gotten a little bit of buzz locally here on Facebook, and he's kind of released some of his collateral in terms of his website and whatnot. But there are going to be some names that are going to jump into the hat. There's some young people that are going to jump into some of these local elections, whether it's open seats for the city council, open seats for the credit union and whatnot. So there's going to be just a ton of this, and so it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic. Hey, boss. I'm just talking. Yeah, I'm talking about the Menfo.
Okay.
Yeah, so sharing with some folks about the Menfo. Great festival.
Yeah.
So, yep, we got the best in Memphis. So we got best in Memphis as a financial institution. So we got great things going.
Why don't you do that out of the wind?
Yeah.
Go do that in that tent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep, I'm going to head that way. Are you over there now? Okay. Yeah. So definitely great things. Had people coming by, talking as we're doing the podcast. But So anyway, you've got the local political cycle that is going on right now, and it's really going to heat up, y'all. Man, I'm just telling you right now, it is going to heat up. And it's not about, which party that you're affiliated with or that you identify yourself with or whatnot, but you're going to see the actions of the president be on full display. So there are going to be those that are going to leverage some of the actions that have come from the White House. Some will be directed at the president directly. Some will be directed at his policy and his approach and some of the things that have been said, his response to some of the tragedies with hurricanes that have come through the United States, and comparing his thoughts on the NFL players and Puerto Rico compared to Houston and compared to Las Vegas, and all the hirings and firings he's been doing, and all those kind of things are going to be on full display. And it's going to be interesting to also hear people who either will choose to defend some of those things or will choose to deflect and avoid some of those things. And that's going to be interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see what constituency on both sides has to say about this. But go ahead and start gearing up. That climate is coming. And make sure that however you choose to participate in the particular election cycle, and I'm not one here to tell you which way to go or how to do it or whatnot. That's not my place and not the point of this podcast. But what does happen or needs to happen is an awareness and an action being taken. And there's different ways to take action. I know some people are very homogenous and think everybody should march and everybody should do this, everybody should do that. And there's a lot of different ways that you can participate. Some people are much more overt and should be out there and in the forefront. Some of us also do some of this more covertly, and we look to kind of manage and control from behind the scenes. So some people are in the puppet show, and then some people look to hold the strings. I'm more of a type of person, quite frankly, that likes to hold some of the strings. So you won't always find me, in the forefront, yelling and carrying picket signs and things like that. I understand the economics. I understand the economics make things move. And the more that you own, right, the more that you could have a say-so. Look, if you don't own anything, what the hell are you talking about? Nobody hears what you're doing, when you're renting, or when you don't own it, you just show up. You could be a loud voice, you could be a disturbance, but things move when you're involved in what makes people move. And people are very materialistic, and their lovers of money. So the money makes them move. So when you understand that, you know how to come to them where they are. And where are they? Wherever you see that trail of money. All right, so it's in the ownership piece of it. So it's teaching people. For example, we had Brittany Thornton with Juice Orange Mound. And don't forget, Round the Mound 5K is coming later this month. All right, make sure that you get with Brittany. She was on the show a few weeks ago. She told y'all, go ahead and get with her. I'm definitely going to be out there. I'm actually going to record the podcast live from Round the Mound 5K in Orange Mound. But we had, Brittany on, a few weeks ago, and we talked about some of these things, right? And so it's going to be very critical how we get out here and how we support, and the different ways that support and engagement can be had. So don't get upset if you don't see people and everybody ain't standing on the bridge. And there's nothing wrong with that. We got to have a diverse, heterogeneous approach to this, and not just a one-size-fits-all. So make sure that that's the case. Look out for the political season. I encourage you, if you're looking to run for office and that kind of thing, make sure that you have an agenda for the people. Make sure that you get the proper support that you need. And just be yourself and be organic, and make sure you're not bought and paid for. All right. Next thing, real quick, Amazon HQ2. So a couple weeks ago, I was in D.C. and it was released, and I told you about Memphis and the Amazon headquarters looking at Memphis and some other cities, and we put our bid in. And we all know, of course, Memphians are no short on being experts on our own shortcomings, and we seem to have PhDs in being able to articulate and showcase where we would have shortcomings and why Amazon would not choose us. And many of those are valid. Some of those may not be, or some of those are a little weak and a little pessimistic. But I want to share with you kind of my thought on where they could locate. And I'm not sure if I shared it last time, but I'm going to share it again because I've had some conversation with some people from a high-end level. But Amazon HQ, in my opinion, should go where Old Court Mall is. If I had my way, and this is just RGB, just telling y'all, if I had my way, I would give them Old Court Mall, and I would give them Audubon Park. Now, before you get all upset, and, start crying and get your panties in a bunch, hear me out for a second, y'all. So, when you look at the Audubon area, so we're pretty much landlocked downtown. I know downtown would be ideal, and people like to look at downtown. But when you think of Amazon HQ having 30 plus buildings, and you're talking about 5-figure numbers of employees. Some will be local. A lot of them would be moved here from other areas of the country, maybe even from Seattle. There's not enough space for that downtown. All right. So my thought is, or my idea would be, is you give up Old Court Mall, which has kind of been in decline for a few years. It's right smack dab in the central of the city, off Poplar Avenue. You give them that, and then you also give them the golf course. And listen, you can relocate the golf course at Audubon. It's over by Botanic Gardens. Give them a nice scenery from right in there, kind of a nice kind of East Memphis, almost Midtown kind of scenery from right there. But that golf course, you leave the park, let them have the park and whatnot. It can still be public, but you let them have that golf course and let them build it into a campus. You widen Southern, you widen, I guess that's Goodlet right there, and you widen Park Avenue. And then from right there, what you do is you allow them to have that area. And the economic viability that they bring. Now, of course, they're going to bring a few challenges logistically, and I definitely get that. But I believe the average salary of an individual at Amazon that would be at this HQ, and don't quote me on this number, but I've heard some numbers tossed around $70, $75, $80,000 a year as an average salary. So those are individuals that are going to be fiduciary participants in the community from a nonprofit standpoint. These are people that look to give back to the community with volunteer time, things like that. These are individuals that are going to have families and things like that. So there'll be a demand for daycare. There'll be a demand for schools. There'll be a demand for restaurants. All that live, work, and play stuff that we tout so well here in Memphis. All of a sudden, you're going to have these people be a part of that. And so I think that would make a great area for a campus. They'll have their distribution center down off Tullahoma to the south from right there. But you get a nice central location that really maintains that kind of Laurelwood area right in there as they're bringing in Nordstrom's and all that. So hit me up on Facebook on the I Really Mean It with RGB Facebook page, on Instagram, whatnot. And let me know what some of your thoughts and what your ideas are of where Amazon could locate within the city. Another area could be the Pinch District, but I know that St. Jude's got their eyes on that and some plans, but maybe there's a way, if Amazon integrated into the Pinch District, you really would have something. Now, they'd have to stretch into North Memphis, and I don't know how that would look. But nonetheless, let's make sure that we really take a strong look at that. But I'd love to hear your opinions on it. So make sure to hit me up. Okay? All right. So before I end this podcast, I want to share with you a word for the week. And I want to start doing this at the end of every podcast show. Because I come on weekly and I want to make sure that you have a word that can take you throughout the week. And some things that I've learned and that many of my friends and business contacts and things like that will share is anytime that you look to be successful, anytime you decide that you're going to get up off the mat, that you're going to get up off the ground and start moving, there's going to be distractors. And a lot of people refer to them as haters and things like that, but they're really just distractors. They're people that are misguided in their view. They think that they're going to try to distract you from what you're trying to do because they may lack the fortitude or the approach to be successful themselves, or they're successful themselves and they're intimidated or insecure about what you're bringing to the table or what you may accomplish. And there are people at all different levels, people at low levels, people at high levels that will get into this, right? So I want to encourage everybody today, make sure that you recognize distractions, avoid them, keep your focus. And remaining focused is a big part. I posted about this on Facebook today, that a big part of showcasing your strength is how you react. And how you react in terms of your focus. People don't like focused people. That's boring to them. They like, this is a society that loves helter-skelter. They love that uncertainty, that unstableness, right? And people that are focused, and you keep a focus on your pathway, and you don't allow distractions, and they can come in many forms. They can come in the form of people, situations, family, friends. They come, and sometimes they don't always mean to be a distraction, but they come in as distractors nonetheless. All right? And you've got to be very careful and very mindful of this, and make sure that don't get upset and all bent out of shape. Don't get all upset, and people love to compete. Some of the things that make us great in sports, we love to compete. And so we carry that to our everyday life, and people get insecure. And one way you can see someone that's insecure is someone that loves to compete in areas where there's no need to compete. Mike Conley gets paid to compete on the basketball floor at FedEx Forum for the Memphis Grizzlies. But when you're out here and you're in the business world, there's so much. Listen, there is so much opportunity out here in Memphis. You don't have to move and leave. You'll hear these people, they always want to move from Memphis and all that. Listen, you can leave to Memphis, you can go to Charlotte, you can go to DC, you can go to New York, you can go to California, wherever you want to go. But if you take your same mentality with you, if you take your same negative mentality, your same hateful mentality, your same slick, discord creating mentality, go into another city, while they may have resources that are a little bit more advanced, you're going to find yourself in the same predicament. So, there's a lot of resource, a lot of opportunity, a lot of untapped opportunity here in Memphis. It's just, nobody's going to hand it to you. None of the powers that be, the Hydes and all these people, they're not going to call you up and say, here's $10 million, here, go do what you want to do. Hell no. Guess what? They're not going to do that when you get to New York. They're not going to do that when you get to Charlotte or Atlanta or DC or Miami or anywhere, right? You got to make your way. Now, yes, people love, we have this sense of we love things that aren't ours, right? We love people from out of town, and that's where people tend to find success. Is people come to Memphis, people leave Memphis, and because we have to be better at supporting our own, and we have this mentality that everybody else's ice is colder than ours. But keep your focus, right? Don't get distracted by every little change of direction of the wind. Keep your focus. You will be successful, right? And you're gonna have setbacks that are gonna come. That's part of the road to success. As anybody that's been successful, and they'll give you the story of how they had setbacks and setups and all kinds of things. People are gonna get over on you. All right, don't become pessimistic over that. That happens. All right, when you extend all the branches to people and they step all over it and all that kind of thing, learn from it and move on. But don't let it cloud your judgment, or don't let it make you so pessimistic that you don't want to do anything for anybody. That's part of being on top is you're going to take shots. And if you think that you're going to be king or queen of the hill and not take shots, and your shots ain't just these electronic darts that you get on social media from the keyboard killers. But these could come in the physical, right? These could come with people that you like, that you trust, people that you love, people that you've been running with for months, years, whatnot. But I encourage you all to make sure that you don't get so bogged down into this whole notion of distractions. Don't be distracted, y'all. Keep your focus, keep moving, and be your very best. You're the very best you that ever existed and that ever will exist. So walk into that. I'm RGB. This is the I Really Mean It podcast. Make sure that you go in, download it. SoundCloud, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, iHeartRadio. Make sure you go do that. Look for me every week, every Friday. Try to make it every Friday, although today's Saturday. But anyway, I thank you so much for sharing, for downloading. Hit us up, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those different areas. Make sure you do that, and I appreciate it so much. With that, peace. I'm out. I'll see y'all next week. Be great.